Okay. Hi everyone. Tonight with the Gauntlet, we are trying something a little bit new. We are playing Blaze in the Dark with an eye to, helping people out who maybe have a block on the game or, are a bit daunted by it in terms of GMing. I've run a lot of Blades. I guess a couple of years ago I was running several campaigns. So yeah, hopefully I'll be able to pass some things on. My name is Donna. My pronouns are he, him. I'm obviously GMing the game. So let's do a quick round of introductions from our players. Primarily, maybe give us a little bit of an idea of what your experience with Blades or other Forged in Dark games is, and then a quick intro for your character. So character keeper order, I guess, as is traditional.
All right, hi, I'm Ben. I use he, him pronouns. I will be playing the cutter, Drav Kesserin, also uses he, him. My experience with Blades is largely academic, and I'm looking to get my feet under me. I've played some Forged in the Dark, specifically Brinkwood, but definitely would like to run and feel confident in doing so.
Hi, everybody. My name is Jose, and my pronouns are he and him, and I'm playing Una Rowan, a lurk, and her pronouns are she and her. And my experience with Blades is very limited. I think I've played maybe 2 sessions in the past ever, and so I'm here to learn.
Hello, I'm Paul, he, him. My experience with Blades, I have run some Blades and I've played some Forged in the Dark games here on the Gauntlet. My running of the sessions were off Gauntlet, and I'm not too sure I interpreted the book. So hopefully I'm going to learn possibly the way it should be done here. And the character I'm playing tonight is Morlan Booker, aka Whiplash.
Hello, my name is Ali, and my pronouns are he, him. And my experience is entirely as a player. I've read a large number of Forged in the Dark games, Blades, Scum and Villainy, Brinkwood. I've got quite a collection of them. But every time I try to screw my character to the sticking place and run them, I kind of bottle. And it is around, I think it's how to make the mechanics smoother. The level of kind of system mastery it seems to require is daunting to me. What is ironic is that John Rogers tweeted over the weekend that a game of mine called Against the Dark Conspiracy is a stripped down version of Forged in the Dark, which I'm not sure is true. But clearly my reading of the book has hugely influenced my thinking about game design. So there you go.
Dice pools and stress and the same success reads on those dice, I guess.
And I've just realized I didn't say that I am playing Faizani Koravid, the spider. Pronouns are she, her. She is the devious mastermind, known to her friends as Faze.
Excellent. And the crew tonight is a crew of thieves called the Magpies. Their reputation is savvy, and their lair is the unassuming backrooms of a merchant's warehouse. And I guess because it's a starting crew, there's not a huge amount of extra detail, but the special ability chosen is synchronized. When you perform a group action, you may count multiple 6s from different rolls as a critical success. So that is good. In terms of your contacts, your favorite contact is Fitz, a collector, and your crew upgrades. You have a hidden layer and prowess training, which I guess aren't going to come into play in a one shot. But the upgrades I chose for you are thief rigging, which gives you -2 load weight, and quality tools. So that is anything that's not covered by the rest of the quality tags. So, tools for breaking and entering or what have you. Okay, so what I want to do now is jump straight into the job. Obviously, in normal play, you might have chosen a job yourself. You might have said, "Hey, let's do this kind of thing," but I want to throw you in head first. So, I guess we're gonna have I'll set the scene, and then maybe you can ask me some questions. There is definitely an opportunity for you to gather information and then maybe decide based on that what your approach is going to be. So the task ahead of you, or rather the structure in front of you, is Scarlock Manor, an infamous place in Six Towers. And you have been asked to, for spot a burglary, you've been asked to acquire an artifact from the 3rd floor. Now, I'm happy to leave the nature of that artifact up to the final moment when you finally come face to face with it. So, mull over that for the next while. But let's start with a couple of questions that might allow us to fill in with details about the crew and also give you food for thought in terms of gathering information. So, yeah, Ben, or maybe I should address the characters. Dagger, who runs Six Towers, and why did you hesitate to venture here on a job?
So I think her name is Kasha, and she was part of my the same crew on the ship that brought me here, and like me, she stayed when we set foot ashore, and we kind of went our separate ways, but we have that shared history. We've kind of stayed out of each other's paths, but it looks like won't be doing that tonight.
Well, you never know. I mean, it would have to be a huge act of coincidence. Someone would have to be pulling some strings to make sure that Kasha ends up on the scene, right? Okay. Jose. I guess this is like a double-barreled question, so
Right.
even more than usual. So you can ask that you can answer these in whatever order you prefer. Who hired you for this job? And why did you accept, or why did you maybe seek this job out yourself?
I think, I should put a name on him. I'll just call him Malcolm. He is, a trader or a merchant that specializes in kind of supernatural antiquities. And he's kind of on the shady side, but he was offering a great deal of coin for this particular artifact, and it was just too tempting to say no to.
Okay, awesome. hall. I imagine that Whiplash knows a thing or two about high society, even if he doesn't frequent there much anymore. What rumors have you heard recently of Lord Skurlock? Does he even live here? Is he still, at large? What have you heard?
I've heard that he is at large, but he tends to not frequent Skurlock Manor anymore. But he does visit on occasion when screams and howls can be heard coming from the building.
Screams and howls. Oh my. Okay. And I think lastly for phase, what's the question I'm looking for? Why do you think I'm going to say your crew, obviously that's maybe the way FaZe thinks as a spider. Why your crew for this job, really? What scheme is underway here?
We do have some connections with that kind of slightly shady part of town, I suppose. I wouldn't be surprised if we've stolen items to order before. I don't think we're a random, break in and smash and grab. I think we or certainly FaZe tries to ensure that we steal to order with a guaranteed offer to unload it at the end. Because I think that we're savvy. We're not stupid thieves. We are careful burglars, gentle folk cracksmen more than smash and grab. I think. So I think that's what brought the work to us.
So if people know that they want to steal something very particular, they go to the Magpies.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, maybe discreet is we can add to that reputation. Okay, cool. So I guess this is we built up a little bit about the job, right? Why you're here, your connections with it. So now is a good opportunity to think about gathering information. Like, I guess in this part of the game, it is information that is going to help you on the job, information that's going to inform your decision of how to enter. So your menu of entry points, right, is sneaking in or kicking down a door or all of that stuff. Your approaches are kind of a key element in that engagement role. So does anyone have a question that's yelling out at them to be answered, or will we go back around the table?
Well, I mean, I want to know that we know this is on the 3rd floor. So I suppose I'm curious about who's our 3rd story person. Who's are we going through the window? Or are we going to try a different way in? Is there anyone who feels confident about being able to get in through a window and then helping the rest of us up? And that might inform a question about the 3rd floor.
From a mechanic point of view, climbing and that sort of thing tends to be covered under the skill prowl.
Yeah, so I mean, I guess here there's two things, right? One, like you're like climbing in the window is or like how you get in the physical sense is going to be really kind of cut to the chase in the engagement role, where you're going to be inside the house at some stage, right? So the question here in terms of like what your approach is going to be is like in very broad strokes. Are you like assaulting? Are you tricking your way in? Are you sneaking your way in? Are you just negotiating your way in? So those are the very broad approaches to think about. And so that like asking a question in terms of gathering information, you might say, oh, are the windows secured, right? So it's kind of a question that you might have as a character when you scout the place out. Hey, do they get a delivery from the canals at the back, that we could sneak in through? Is there a butler that we can befriend down the pub? Befriend down the pub, right? So these are the kind of things you identify, and there's some room for slipping between characters and players here, right? What I'll say is, if it's a straightforward thing, I'm just going to answer it, or maybe we can ask the table. If it's something that there's a little bit of risk on, we can like do a simple action roll for. I guess it's probably more like a fortune roll to see whether you find it out or get that way in. So yeah, you've like, I guess you can walk by it, right? So it's a big house, maybe 4 or 5 stories, standing next to a canal on one side, street on the other. Probably looks a little bit dilapidated, I think, given that we've said that Lord Skurlock doesn't really live here anymore. So yeah, I guess like gathering information is usually like help us to make a decision on what the best way in for us is.
Okay, well, I'd like to go and have a chat with my shrewd friend Jenna.
Okay.
Because Jenna is a servant.
Yeah.
And servants talk to servants. And so I'm wondering what Jenna has to tell me about the routines of Skurlock House in particular, or maybe just to check in, because I know how big houses work in Iruvia.
Yeah.
The question is, do I know how big houses work here? And can Jenna help me just flesh out the routines of the house, specifically Skurlock Manor, if possible?
Okay. So, I mean, where do you think FaZe would meet up with Jenna? Is this like a quick 20-minute chat at her lunch break, or is this like an overnight debriefing session?
I think that Jenna's a servant, so she doesn't get nights off particularly. I think on a Sunday she gets to walk in what passes for the local park. And I think FaZe will fall in with her on her weekly half day off in the park.
Okay. Okay. So how about I think you roll consort to see maybe how disarming you are. I mean, Jenna is a good friend, but still, you gotta ask the right questions. Maybe you gotta lead her down the path of exactly what you want.
Yes, I mean, I never want to get Jenna into trouble, obviously, but we've talked before. She's local, I'm not. She may well have met me when I was a servant, when I first arrived here and took whatever work I could find. And so I think it's not about tell me everything you know about Skurlock Manor. It's you know, the way that I'm often struck by the difference between how things operate at home and how things operate here. So, for instance, the way that big houses used to operate in Aruvia was this way. What's it like here, Jenna? And, you know, on a critical success, is because Skullock Manor is a bit odd, isn't it? Is it unusual, or because it has this reputation?
Yeah. So why don't you roll? You got 2 in consort.
I have.
So why don't you roll 2 dice, and let's see.
That is a 5 and a 1.
Okay, so 5 is pretty good, right? It's a 4 to 5 good success, maybe not as much as you hoped for. So I think this is the kind of second-hand rumors that Jenna would have heard. You know, she doesn't know anyone who works there. She's not worked there herself, which probably would have been critical. And yeah, I think Jenna maybe, you know, stops walking, you know, when you mention Skurlock Manor, and says, "Faze, you shouldn't go there. It is exceedingly dangerous. I've heard so many souls have been lost there."
Oh, I mean, no, I'm not talking about going there. I'm just, you know, you know, the gossip says that it's an odd place. You know, the Lord and Master doesn't live there, at least not regularly. So no, I've heard some of the rumors, Jen, but I you know, just in terms of, do you think that it do they have the same kind of staff? I mean,
Well,
you know, we bumped into one another when we were, you know, working different houses. I just, you know, I'm curious.
Let's say they're short-staffed. They don't, or at least they don't need staff. And when their master arrives, they have no warning, and they just make do. And I think the butler is an elderly gentleman who doesn't go out much. I think he gets deliveries of everything that he needs. But there's still a few people who work there. You know, not the dozen or so you would have found there in its heyday, but I'd say much the same kind of thing goes on there. No dinner parties, obviously. No visits on an afternoon.
I see. Yeah, I mean, that's what I'd heard, to be honest. Anyway, I must away, and you'll be needing. I don't want to take up all your half day. Are you seeing anyone at the moment?
Who has time for that kind of social life? My current masters are, well, the Strangfords, filthy rich, obviously, but no patience for any kind of mistakes or misapprehensions.
Oh, will you look after yourself?
I could put in a good word for you there, Faze, if you do find yourself in need of employment.
Yeah, you know, I found service difficult, Jenna, and I described Faze as simply but respectably, even demurely dressed. And I think that, as far as Jenna's concerned, she's got a job tutoring. So, you know, that kind of lower middle class, genteel poverty kind of occupation, like all teachers.
Okay, awesome. Thanks, Alan. So, anyone else got a burning question or line of investigation to ask?
Yeah. I'd, but I'm happy to sit till the end if some other guys have already lined something up. The one I was going to, just in case it treads on other people's toes, I was going to look into what are the dangers. Anybody else Anybody going to jump on that one? Because I'll pick something else.
I was thinking more of a security was what I was going to focus on. Security systems and security protocols.
Okay, I'll jump in and hopefully deal with one of the dangers. So I'm going to go and see my good friend Brill, the drug dealer. Now, Brill is quite a respectable notary. I know him through my law work. But on the flip side, Brill privately likes to dress as a woman, and he frequents clubs where this is allowed. And I've met Brill at one such club, and therefore I know that Brill deals drugs. So in one of these sort of hidden backstreet clubs, I would like to meet up with Brill, clearly in disguise.
Okay. So yeah. Where's this club, do you think? Is it
I think it's in quite a rundown part of town, definitely quite a distance from where Brill has his day-to-day life. So Crow's Foot, shall we say?
Sure, yeah.
Yeah, and it'll be a sort of a basement club. Gets raided by the Bluecoats every now and then. It's quite well defended. The people that frequent it won't normally get picked up by the Bluecoats. They can always get out. So yeah, I'll meet Brill there, where he's pushing husk or some other drugs to the clientele. Brill, my friend, how goes?
Pretty good. Are you pulling an all-nighter?
I am indeed. Yes. And odd to see you here outside of work, shall we say?
Well, let's not and say we did.
Exactly, my friend. Some of my friends have said that you have frequented parties more as a peddler of substances in Skurlock Manor.
Oh, whew. I still haven't recovered. And that was like 5 months ago. I still haven't recovered.
Ah, not recovered. Horrors did you see? I'm sure you saw many there.
So, Brill pulls down the ruffle on his collar and shows you these teeth marks in his shoulder.
An enjoyable night, or maybe not, depending on who you ask.
Fuck me. I didn't expect that. But
did you wander out of the main rooms, perhaps? Is that how you got that?
No.
You shouldn't
it was,
have done?
A youthful indiscretion. My experimental phase,
fair one.
Everyone's got to try it once.
Indeed, they say they do. Brill. I mean, you didn't happen. Was Nyrix there as well?
Oh no, well, you tell me. Is Nyrix like high class or more your level, street level? What do you think?
I think she is high class now, but some people know that she started down at the street level. Yeah, and clearly my frequenting clubs like this is clearly not where the sort of business that she works in. So I think that's why we don't like each other.
Okay. So, yeah, I think let me think.
This is
Yeah, I
sounding.
think. Sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, I was just flicking to the mechanical. What do you think?
Yeah,
To
I
get
think
this
you've got
info
to
out of
like
it?
maybe dig deeper and maybe kind of yeah. I think maybe Brill probably knows that you're not friendly with Nyrix, and maybe he doesn't want to get in between the two of you. Maybe he just wants to
Lay low, stay
stay out
hidden.
of it. Yeah. So maybe you need to sway, or maybe you want to ask some kind of non-direct questions and maybe use some study to kind of
Uh, I'm
divine.
I'm willing to. Yeah, I will. I'm going to try and sway him because I'm going to pull some sort of logic and deception on him that clearly his way of life and her way of life is very opposite. So what's bad for her is good for him, basically. With his drug dealing and his personal life. So really, seeing about her downfall would be pretty good for him.
Okay. So yeah, make that roll and see.
I would like to also invoke a devil's bargain.
Okay.
I
What
can
have
put it
you
out
in
there for
mind?
the table if anybody's got any, but I'm thinking that a complication in the job would be either he or she will be there.
Okay. Yeah, I mean that either be there already or turn up because they know you're interested.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Either way, I'm happy with that.
Okay. So yeah, I guess word gets around, right?
Yeah.
You mention someone's name in a club like this, and ears are
The
perked.
walls have ears.
Yeah. Okay, so you roll an extra die for that. So you'll be at 3 for sway.
3 dice. Let's see what we get. We have a 4.
Okay, a 4. So that's half decent.
Standard result.
Yeah. So, listen, Whiplash. I was there because of the goods I could deliver, and this was like some high level shit. There, like Nyrix was fucking there at home with these people. Like she'd always been there. Like she knew the layout of the place, and not her first time. And I mean, it was like, what was funny? There was these things on the doors, right? And they I didn't notice like I didn't notice till afterwards, but someone said like, I don't know, that they were like ghost barriers or something like that.
Spirit barriers.
Whatever. Like,
yeah, well, I've heard that stuff exists with the spirit wardens and stuff. So, and Lord Skurlock, he's definitely got he's a very rich and powerful man near the top, they say.
yeah, but the guy who gave me this, no fucking joke. He like he was mean son of a bitch.
Well, clearly a place to avoid on a good night.
Yeah, I mean, they need to pay me double to go back. Not my seat.
Fair one, Brill. Well, I mean, I'll see what I can do. Throw some business your way, maybe. To make up for that loss of income from going there. If you do go back, you need to stay safe, Brill.
I mean, no one looking out for me but me, right?
Well, I've always got a soft spot for you, Brill. You know, if the stars align, I'm sure I can sort you out, my friend.
The stars align. That sounds like a threat in this city.
Well, they don't come out too often, that's for sure.
Uh-huh. Anyway, be good, or if not, don't get caught.
Exactly. I plan to never get caught. Thank you, Brill, as I doff my hat.
Okay. Okay, cool. Ben, how about Dagger? You got a line of inquiry?
I was thinking about maybe paying Kasha a visit and see if she could help out an old friend.
Okay. So, and Kasha is not someone on your friend list, right?
No, I feel like we probably parted on poor terms.
Okay. So, so this is like not an enemy like Mercy is, but someone you're not expecting like a warm welcome from.
Right. I'm hoping that time will have soothed any bad feelings.
Okay, cool. So where do you find Kasha? What like she is leading a gang that's kind of running a few corners or more in Six Towers.
I think she might envision herself and her people as in the real estate, developing these abandoned properties. So it's not a con.
Okay.
But yeah, basically a gang that has got a bunch of corners.
Yeah. I'm sure there'll be a big insurance payout someday.
Exactly.
So yeah, is this the first time you've been here, or maybe you were here very early days before you parted ways?
Yeah, that sounds right.
So yeah, I think when you arrive, I think I think as a cutter, one who is not to be trifled with, you get people's attention. These are criminals, and they know your sort when you walk in the door, right? And I think you probably get the kind of "I'm not afraid of you" posturing that your arrival on the scene on someone else's turf usually brings out, right? And I think there's probably, I don't know, do you think there's like a moment when things look like they're going to turn ugly, or like how does Dagger treat this kind of challenge?
I feel like Dagger always has a bit of a smile on his face. It's maybe a little disarming because you never know whether how he's actually feeling or where his intentions actually, maybe he is this friendly. But he's always ready. I think he'd be ready should things devolve.
Okay, but not
not necessarily pushing it.
Yeah. Okay. Cool. So I think in time-honored fashion, maybe Kasha is behind the bar, right? She's a legitimate businesswoman, right? And there's like a moment's pause when she recognizes you, and she just like gives you an up nod, and maybe just like gives a gets rid of her people out of your way, right, with a gesture or a snarl, right. Drav.
Long time
How's
no see.
things?
Oh, keep him busy. Keep him busy. Looks like same can be said about you.
You looking for a drink?
Yeah, sure. We'll start with that.
So I think, yeah, she pours out a healthy dram of whiskey into 2 glasses.
And he'll thank her with a nod and take it probably a little quicker than is polite. And say, so figure I'll cut straight to the chase here. Skurlock's Tower. What's the deal?
What's the deal? Still not derelict despite appearances, so I don't fuck with it.
Is he one you don't fuck with on principle?
On pragmatics, let's put it.
Interesting. Say someone did want to fuck with him.
And she picks up the glass of whiskey and inhales it for a moment before she downs it in one go. I'll keep 2 coins for their funeral. But hey, you are always, your friend or whoever you're asking for, I'm sure is lucky enough to get away with it. I mean, I hear he's not there most of the time anyway, so. But I gotta work here, so. I'm not gonna shit where I eat.
Well, of course. I don't eat here that often, so But any any assistance you could maybe pass along to a good friend?
And yeah, that eyebrow goes into action when you say good friend, right? Because that's a bit of a stretch. What do you think? I think you've got a close enough connection for this to be consort, right? Dagger's charming enough to get that die. Happy with that 1 die, or you gonna push or take a devil's bargain?
I think I will push.
Okay.
Yeah, I'll take 2 stress. There seems to be someone at the door. I'm sorry.
Okay, no problem. Dogs hate people at the door. We all know that.
Sorry, this consort?
Yeah, so consort and then an extra die for your push.
That's a 4.
Okay. Any tips for a good friend? Huh. Well, any tips for a good friend? I mean, what kind of work are you doing now?
Oh, this and that. Anything keeps my hands busy.
Okay, well, here's one from not my painful experience. Crew we pushed out. those doors, like the external doors, the external entry points are all pretty well secured, like, ironclad. You're not going to be kicking those down in a hurry.
How about the windows?
Well, I don't know. I mean, those guys and my guys are more like, front door people. We tend not to climb. We carry a lot of shit. So, but I don't know. They kind of look all the same to me. Like they're all done in the same style or whatever the fuck. So like all looks old and solid. So if I was paranoid, which is a healthy habit in our profession, I'd assume they're all pretty solid all the way up.
Well, that's unfortunate.
But you get the right tools, you jimmy anything open, right? You just don't hit it with a sledgehammer.
And if we were to make a bit of noise here, we wouldn't be ruffling any of your feathers, right?
Depends. Depends how big the pile of shit you leave on my lawn, right?
Well, we will do our best to clean up after ourselves.
Fair
More or
enough.
less.
One for the road?
You didn't forget me at all, did you?
So yeah, I think she pours another 2 drams of whiskey to see on your way, and then I think maybe as you exit, you hear a little bit of like, who the fuck is that from her guys, right? Okay, awesome. So, Jose, how about Sparrow? What?
So my sense is that Sparrow is, since she knows that she's probably going to be the one who's going to have to make the first infiltration in this, is going very methodical in terms of casing the mansion. And so I see her kind of a montage of her kind of in a cloak, like, in a doorway across an alley from the house, just smoking a pipe. And just taking in whatever she can about, the comings and goings of the deliveries. She's also casing out handholds that she could climb to get up to upper windows. Maybe we also see her kind of on a slow barge on the canal side of the house. Also watching, she has these special goggles, I guess, that allow her to see in the dark. And she's also just watching the way light moves in the house at night. If any rooms get lit up or any rooms never get lit up. And she's looking for possible entry points that aren't frequently lit up or used, really. And any windows that ever open, and if anything has to happen when they are opened, in terms of locks or security or those kinds of things. So all basic casing the joint for burglary kinds of things.
You want to know everything.
Well, she's got plenty of time. She's just sitting around watching. I mean, you can do what you want.
That's no problem. So
you don't have to give me everything, but that's what she's looking for.
So let's make this a survey roll. You just
so
not quite like sitting out and having coffee and just watching it all day, all night, but
I mean, she could get caught if she fails a roll. I mean, obviously.
Well, not usually on a gather information. It's less of an action roll and more of a kind of a action. Well, more of a like a fortune roll with your action dots. But
Okay. So then survey, I have a 1, so that means that is just 1 die.
Just 1 die, yeah.
Okay. And pushing myself means that I
Spend 2 stress.
spend 2 stress. Okay.
Or if you wanted to, you could take a devil's bargain to.
And
to
remind me
get
how.
yourself-
I mean, I know Paul just did a devil's bargain,
Yeah.
but how
So
does it?
devil's bargain is something that is going to happen or that does happen that is not in your favor fictionally.
And it gives me an added die. Is that
Gives
what
you
it
an extra
does?
die just to soften the blow.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Basically, I mean, the overarching question is comings and goings.
Yeah.
Yeah. Really, within the mansion.
And I guess when we do a gather information roll on a 1 to 3, you're just getting the kind of bare minimum of info. Right? You're not getting anything extra. You're not getting any kind of follow up details. So it's not like a fail in the typical sense.
Okay. So I'll just, I guess I'll push myself. So that'll give me 2 die.
So 2 dice for 2 stress.
And on this table, do I just choose?
Yeah. So just click 2 dice, and
sorry,
if
did I not do
select
it right?
dice that are already on the table, and then you can click the reroll. But if
I rolled 2 more, but
yeah.
Anyways.
But I'm not
a 6
sure
and a 4.
A 6 and a 4. Okay, that's fine. So it's good, right? So you're getting like a lot of details here, and maybe you got like a sketchbook or something like that, or is Sparrow's memory just good enough to like remember all these details? What do you think?
Yeah, maybe she does have a small pad that she writes details on in case she forgets anything.
So yeah, I think you have a like over the course of maybe a day or two. I don't know what our timeline is. There's like a delivery one morning, so like a gondola arrives at the back canal gate, and some packages or boxes are just dumped in, and there's like an old doddery man you see, maybe supervising the gondola crew. Comings and goings, like very few. Like you see at the front door maybe like one person leave and then come back a couple of hours later, and that guy is like a fucking brute, like wider than he is tall, definitely packing something unpleasant.
Yeah. He's living there, or he comes and goes?
Well, you see him leave and then come back, and you don't see him like leave again. So
Okay.
It would seem that he's living there. And then at night, like the lights, like there seems to be like over one night, it's hard to get a sense of a pattern, but there seems to be stuff going on at night. Like
rooms light up.
Yeah, rooms light up. There's definitely maybe a sense of activity moving from the downstairs to the upstairs, like over the course of the evening. That's not too unusual, but yeah, there's definitely someone walking around the halls at night.
And any rooms that never light up, or at least not in that night that I watched?
Yeah, there's probably I think there's like a corner room on the 3rd floor, right, that never lights up.
Okay.
And maybe that's when your lurkage senses go. Maybe that's where it is, right?
Ding, ding, ding.
Ding, ding, ding. Right. For 6, I think that's
okay.
fair.
All right. Sounds good.
Okay. So, so what I'm going to do now is maybe suggest we take a break, and then after the break, we might do some like any follow-up questions that occur to you, and then we'll like jump into our kind of plan or our approach and engagement role. So I've got 11 minutes past now. Do you want to take till 20 past? Okay. Okay. yeah, so I guess that's a pretty good gather information section. I guess it's a good opportunity for some role playing, right? And to get a sense of who your character is and to get a sense of the world that we're inhabiting. So obviously, like, sometimes you could pare this down to the mechanics, right? You can say, oh, let's just roll and I'll tell you what it is and keep it purely transactional. But for the most part, when I have when there's a job or a heist on my books for blades, I've done effectively zero prep, right? So I don't know any of the answers to those questions until we get to the table, right? So my prep for today's heist was, hey, rob something from Skurlock Manor, right? So like taking your time in character helps me as well as helping you, right? So it's a good way to let your mind mull over the issues and kind of arrive at that question. So no different really from any kind of play to find out PBTA setup.
Is it typically done individually, like we did with each character doing something different?
It can vary. Sometimes you might have like a couple of people who want to talk to the same or kind of pursue the same avenue. And so in that case, you might have someone help someone else, right? Instead of pushing.
That's right.
And then sometimes you might just say, oh, like we're only interested in like a couple of different things. We kind of have a good sense of what's going on, or we're just going to, damn the torpedoes and straight at them on this job, right? So, but it's not unusual for everyone to take a run at gathering information. You might, like, at the table, depending on how much time you have, you might say, you might try to curtail a little bit. There's probably something to talk about a little bit more, right? Is that sometimes the kind of play cycle, if you try to do like one job per session, can be quite unforgiving, right? I think sometimes that's where there's a lot of mechanics in a job, and there's a lot of mechanics on either side of the job too, right? So your downtime, and so if you do that kind of, hey, 1 3-hour session, fit an entire job in there, it gets really tight. And then you probably see a lot of that role-playing opportunity at the start and the end, which is great territory for role-playing, because you're doing downtime or you just like not under pressure, kind of gets stolen, right? So that's certainly something to think about, when you run, is say, we're going to take however long we take. Maybe we do get a job done in a session, or maybe we just curtail the job part of it and do the bookends, or maybe we just take 2 sessions to do the whole thing, or maybe we just play at whatever pace it is and we don't look at the clock. So that's kind of definitely a thing to think about in Blades, and in any kind of like job kind of oriented game, really, to be honest. And so I think maybe
go ahead.
I say that maybe that is where you feel the opportunity for role play to quite limited if you are trying to fill in the whole cycle into a single session.
Yeah, that makes sense. So in the example that I did, which wasn't involving an NPC, which is I should have maybe is a good practice to really streamline it and really have one really focused question and maybe a couple of vignette kinds of things and then just go off, or
no, I think it's probably a player style thing, right? So
okay.
But also, like, when you're just doing it yourself as a character, instead of like asking someone, you can, just fictionally, you can be a little bit more general, right? I'm just gonna like
I'm just gonna look.
I'm just going to stake the place out for a couple of days and see what I see, right?
Right. Okay. All right.
So yeah, it's your mileage may vary, right? And it does, right? Okay. So, so what we do now, right, is we kind of plan, and really in Blades, I think it's really important to not do planning, right? You just like choose your approach and maybe like add one or two details and then choose your load and then go for it, right? And this for me, I played a lot of Shadowrun back in the day, and the planning sessions we spent on that game was just incredible. Like we would spend whole sessions planning out a job, and then like the first elevator door opens and the plan just goes out the window. And I think Eisenhower might have said plans are useless, planning are vital, but not in an role playing game for me. So yeah, you choose the most basic description of your approach, the kind of detail that sets it off a bit, and then you go. So the approaches listed, I think if you go down to row 74, where you have your load, you'll see them. So it's assault, point of attack, deception, method, infiltration, entry point, occult, arcane power, social, your connection, and then transport, your location / route. So those are your kind of approaches and details.
I've got a question, Donna, on planning and load. You hardly ever see, or the GM quite often says, transport is not an option for this thing. I was thinking as a GM, so if the players pick transport, would you then flash to the job has succeeded and they're trying to get away? And as a GM, then flick all your sort of nastiness, sort of as in like a chase, a heist sort of thing?
It totally depends on the job. So,
well, take for instance this job. If we now said we want to transport, I mean that sort of doesn't really fit in with a burglary.
Well, except that this is transport could mean that's your way in. So instead of like fooling your way in or talking your way in, you're like smuggling yourself inside, like in a delivery, right? Cool. So like if you, so like it, transport, it seems like really specific, and sometimes it just might not suit. But yeah, sometimes you could say like, as a group, we want to do like a train job or a getaway or a route chase, and let's make that the job. And certainly, if you said, oh, let's assume that we successfully burglarize the place, and then it's like delivering the goods to our to whoever hired us. That's the job we're going to see on screen. So like that's a group decision, right? I wouldn't say have I ever kind of said no, that couldn't work. I don't think so.
I mean, there's definitely ones on that list that tend to get used a lot more than others.
Yeah, it also depends on the crew, right? Like the both the type of crew, but also like the makeup of the crew, right? So if you've got a bunch of really kind of physically oriented characters, you're probably not going to pick social connection, right? You're probably not going to schmooze your way in somewhere, but that's not a constraint of the job. It's like a preference to play your characters and their
I mean, the cult's another one that I don't very often see picked.
Yeah. So the long campaign I previously ran in Blades was a cult, and we would have an occult job quite frequently. Right? But then again, they were also doing, infiltrations or social. So it doesn't. I'd say you probably need to have a whisper or like an occult leaning to your crew for an occult approach to make a lot of sense.
Sure, thanks.
And
So
obviously, sorry, we don't have a leech and we don't have a lurk. Sorry, we don't have a whisper in this crew, so occult is probably the least likely approach for you lot.
So I am going to put on the table infiltration or deception as the two options that leap off the list to me. Deception, then whiplash takes point, I suppose. If it's to be intrusion, that's going to be the lurk. So what are we thinking?
We've got that nice synchronizability.
We have.
So I'm thinking it cuts down on RP, hopefully, so might sort of see some other stuff. I'm going to go with infiltration.
Sound good.
Yeah.
Okay. And what's your preferred entry point?
Sparrow, what do you think? You're an expert. Where's our point of infiltration?
Well, I mean, the point of entry would have been the third floor window of the room that's not being used or haven't seen be used.
It's good enough for me.
So does that mean like you're all climbing up, or like getting into another house next door and like going across the rooftops? And
that's an interesting one, because my working assumption is if the plan is to infiltrate, then having Whiplash go to the front door and create a distraction using his disguise skills while Sparrow is climbing out, that seems like 2 points that I sometimes get myself in. I overthink it.
yeah, so here there's 2 points to make, right? So it's important to think about what your real entry point is. So like if something is a distraction, then it's still a distraction. Like, so in this case, if like a few of you are climbing up to get through that third floor window while there's a side deception going on at the front door, like your third floor entry is still your main approach, right?
Okay.
The second point to make is if things don't work out that way, then obviously that was your plan all along, right? If the rolls go horribly, you can extemporize. You can say, well, we're just walking in the front door now to investigate with the butler or whatever it is, and that's how we're going to get the job done. It doesn't matter that your chosen approach doesn't work out. You're going to find some other way. And maybe the spider says, "I love it when a plan comes together," or or something like that. But so kind of like being a little bit clear-sighted about what your actual what approach is going to deliver for you is kind of the first step, and then the second step is if all hell breaks loose and it doesn't work out that way, then that's fine. Your approach and your engagement role just gets us started.
Okay. Well, then intrusion is third floor window at the back, and we'll see what the dice tell us in terms of whether we're all sitting comfortably in an upstairs room or we are spread out across the garden as the floodlights go on.
So yeah, I mean, I envisage sort of a rain-swept night, moon, oil skins, in the wind as myself and Sparrow are climbing a sort of a drain pipe. Sparrow's forcing this 3rd floor window while I'm supporting him, and then lines go down to the other 2 for them to easily enter through the 3rd story window.
Okay.
My general view is that the lawyer should always go second.
Better call Whiplash.
And I'm kind of expecting Drav to bring up the rear in case something goes horribly pear-shaped behind us.
Break open in case of emergency, right?
Exactly.
So the other thing to do before we talk about engagement is your loadout. So normally you're talking about three items. So I guess you've all played Blaze before, so you don't have to declare any items before. You just say what your load is. But because of thief rigging, you can get like 2 free. So you can have like you can take 5 but still be light, or you can take 6 and still be medium or normal. So you have probably more. You look a lot less suspicious, right, walking down the street to this job than your average scoundrel. So at the start, all you have to do is declare your load, and then you fill in the details as you need them. So you might imagine, oh, I'm going to need climbing gear, but you don't pick it till it happens.
Is there any mechanical disadvantage of going with normal?
So, the kind of I think this is probably you'll recognize this from Against the Dark Conspiracy, Alan. So, normal load means you look a little bit suspicious, right? Anyone with an eye will recognize you as a scoundrel, right? So, but to be honest, with the thief rigging, you can go light and you get 5 items. So, you're unless you really need that 6th dot, you're probably fine. Okay.
And
if all of us need 6 pieces of equipment, we're screwed.
Sorry, Jose, what were you going to say?
So if I choose light, then I actually have 5.
Yeah.
And those can be from either of those 2 lists, because I see that
Yeah.
there's 2.
So the list on the right that starts with a blade or 2 is generic, so everyone has that same list. And the other thing you'll notice is that if there's like 1 square, it's like 1 item in those slots. If it's 2, it's 2. If it's 3, it's 3. The only one for 3 is heavy armor, and that's on top of your normal armor. So like heavy armor is 5 slots, so it's big. The items in the left, which are colored in, those are the items particular to your playbook. So so the other thing you'll notice is that some items are in italics, and those are like fine items. So those give you like a quality boost. I think. Yeah. I don't know how this is done. It could be those items are 0 load, but that's not what the character keeper suggests. This is what I get for not having played a game in 3 years.
There are some things that are 0
These small details slip away. Let me just double check.
Yeah, when you hover your mouse over some of the items, it does say 0 load in them.
Okay, yeah, so I think it's individual because can I see some? Yeah, so actually it says it in the description. So so you don't need to specify anything yet until you actually use it. Okay. So yeah, everyone happy with our load? Yeah.
Yep.
Okay. Cool. So next we do engagement. So let's. It's good to know where people are, right? So the way I understand it, Whiplash is like at the front door, right? and then Dagger is kind of waiting as a reserve, and then is it FaZe and Sparrow are getting ready to climb?
I didn't think Whiplash was going to be at the front door.
Okay.
But I may have got that wrong, Paul.
No, I was going up. I was the second person entering. I was climbing along with Sparrow.
Okay.
And then basically we'll both throw down ropes for the other two.
Okay. So I guess you're all ready to climb up. Okay. So for the engagement roll, we start with 1 die. That's just the basic starting for, hey, trying something foolish. Or, be on a job, right? So then we ask a couple of questions to give us more dice for this engagement roll. So is this operation particularly bold or daring? Is this in the middle of the night, or is this in what passes for broad daylight in Duskwall?
I think we talked about night, didn't we?
I think night would be a good idea. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Though, given the rumours about Scorlock Manor, I don't know about that, but I think we are kind of lumbered with it.
Okay.
And we've got a dark and stormy night.
We have.
Is this operation overly complex or contingent on many factors? Doesn't sound like it. Okay.
No.
Simple, savvy, works.
Okay. Does the plan's detail expose a vulnerability of the target or hit them where they're weakest?
Does Sparrow's observation, the point at which lights come up, go upstairs? I'm thinking this might be dusk, not deep night. If there's, because I think you described that, lights came on upstairs in the evening or at night. Did they then go out?
I think I described it as being kind of continuous activity throughout the night, but not, obviously there's like a petering down of activity, but it's still stuff going on at night, but never in the room that you're doing the entry on.
Well, does dusk sound like the tipping point then, before everybody's gone upstairs?
Oh.
Yeah, I guess you're going to pick the right time based on last night's observation, right? So, okay, let's give you a second dice for that. So, can any of your friends or contacts provide aid or insight for this operation? On top of what we have kind of discerned through the gather information phase. What do you think?
Well, Jenna told us that they're relatively short-staffed.
Yeah. But like, so is that extra insight?
I suppose it's insight. I suppose I'm trying to turn something she told me into a mechanical benefit. Now, and maybe those gather informations are not for that purpose, but for narratively to paint a picture of the job of what we're going to face.
Yeah, I think if she had worked here before and had given you kind of specifics, I would have said for sure, but I'm not. Yeah.
No, fine.
And again, like I would usually at this point say, like, unless the rest of the table say, no, we want that extra die, damn it. I will concede to the table.
So we're weaving in the information gathering phase, we're weaving a lot of narrative that may or may not impact these kinds of factors now when we go to engage.
Yeah. So for example, like the vulnerability in terms of the
right.
The activity on the house and choosing your time, like that's a definite weakness that we have identified. But the benefit to normally the questions you get from your contacts is that you gain information. I think it's got to be like over and above to be like inside or aid. So aid would be, hey, I'll open the back door for you, or I'll call out the butler, or whatever it is. Right? Okay. Any enemies or rivals interfering in this operation? No.
Not that we know of.
Unless you want there to be. Right?
Wait, did Paul's Devil's Bargain suggest that the Lord of the Manor might be showing up? Does that confirm that?
Nyrix, Whiplash's rival.
Oh.
So they may show up later on, but I don't know that they are interfering right
the moment.
now. Right.
Okay.
Okay, so that is by my count.
Just to chase another dice.
Yeah.
What if Telda, Sparrow's beggar friend, was banging on the front door, seeking, money for a drink?
Okay, alms for a poor beggar, Mister. Sure. Is Sparrow happy with putting her bestie in danger like that?
Yeah, I think so. And she just tells Telda, look, if any heat comes up, just bolt. But we just need a quick distraction.
And what's Telda's general appearance or demeanor usually?
She's very heavy set. And she has a big wide brimmed hat that she always wears, and kind of a floral print dress, and a very kind of like a duster, is that what you call it? That over her dress, like, but it's kind of almost oil skin to keep the rain off of her. And she's loud. She's very loud.
Okay, there you have it. There's an extra. That's definite aid or insight. Okay, so that is 3 dice I have for you. Yeah.
You're the point man, Sparrow. Point woman. Do your thing. 3 dice.
Do we? I'm the one who rolls this. Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
So if you click on
always keen to shift responsibility and delegate.
So I say if you like drag 3 dice that you're going to roll closer together, and then just you can click the reroll button at the bottom.
All right, I'll just put these 3 right next to each other, the 2 blue ones and the purple one.
Okay, cool.
And then I just hit the reroll button. Okay.
If you,
Oops. Oh, that's not good.
Wow, that's a terrible roll. Wow. So
sorry, folks.
That's good. It's a learning experience, or it's a teachable moment.
Teachable moment. Roll better dice.
Sorry, the amount of talk shit roll crits, right? That is the only thing in Blades. So your highest result is a 3.
Yes.
On 3 dice, which is improbable, but that's why we roll dice. Which is a bad result. You're in a desperate position when the action starts.
How can I help? Or is the engagement roll flat?
The engagement roll is flat. None of you are. It's not an action roll. It's just like a fortune roll. We've kind of. So again, what this is, avoids in play is like a slowly, and it kind of avoids more planning as we get started. So we just like start at the crux and see what happens. Okay. So yeah, a bad result. So usually what I would do with a bad result is just everything that can go wrong has gone wrong. Or at least all the things that I can think of off the top of my head. And this is not necessarily your, it's just bad luck, or, things didn't work out the way you thought they were gonna. It's not that, the scoundrels are incompetent, so it's not like you can't climb up, or your climbing gear breaks, or you're in the wrong house, or something like this, right? It's just typically bad luck. So where do we start? Yeah, so I think Tilda is like knocking on the door and making a racket, and I don't know if there's letterboxes indoors in Duskfall, but if there are now, right? So she has got her hand poked in, she's like shouting through it, in I don't know, maybe she's like dialed her loudness up to obnoxious, neighbor level, right? She's gotten the brief. She understands what her mission is here. I don't know what you promised her to get her to do this, but there you have it. So, yeah. So you're climbing up. I guess your initial climb from Sparrow is holding on to the wall. These tiny crimp holes in the brickwork going up, dragging a rope behind you. And then I think the window has like this kind of fake balcony, like one for window boxes, I guess, but there's no window box here. And you kind of clip yourself on, and just like Dagger warned you, this is like it's not the kind of a light window you could just push through. It's got these iron reinforced shutters over them. So you're taking out a key and working at it. And then you get through, you open, and I think then your balcony that you're clipped into just shutters. All of the screws or whatever's holding it into the brickwork just start to fail one by one. You can hear the pops of these screws just like being broken, getting pushed out, and it just swings. So you're held on to this thing by just one old ancient screw, and then you're kind of swinging below it. So I guess you're kind of right in front of the next window down, right? So you're looking at the second floor window, and this is making a racket, right? And someone opens the shutter right in front of you. So there's this old codger of a butler that you recognize from your surveillance just opens the window right in front of you, and like you're just hanging there catching your breath, I don't know, praying to whatever god Sparrow believes in for that final screw to stay for just another second. What do you do?
I think so I am tied to this railing by a line, right?
Well, so I added that detail. So you could have been just holding on, right?
Oh, I could have just been holding on.
But
okay.
I think you wanted to clip it in to let the rope go down to the other guys as well. So you can be holding on to it, or you can be clipped in, whichever you prefer.
Right. Maybe holding on to it gives me a little bit more freedom, because if it falls off, then I don't want to go down with it. So Sparrow's going to try to swing into the second floor the window that is now open with the old codger in it, and at the same time, not tackle the old codger, but smack him.
Okay, yeah.
He's in my way.
He's in the way. Okay.
I'm swinging into the window now, with whatever motion I have on top of him.
Yeah. And let's just get a sense of what the others are doing before we do that. Whiplash, you were maybe about to start climbing, or maybe just off the ground as the second man in. What are you doing right now?
So I've got to move cloak and dagger, use disguise or other form of covert misdirection. So I want to kind of generate some covert misdirection. What is covert misdirection on this bloke? Anybody got any ideas?
Struggling a bit, to be honest.
So are you on the ground, or had you been kind of maybe up at that level as well? Or so I'm thinking right at the moment that
I think if Sparrow was at the third level and then fell, I think I'm on a drain pipe that is sort of on the second level.
Okay. So maybe we have this really kind of not quite disastrous, but as Sparrow falls and the balcony swings out, maybe it just misses you by a hair, but you're right there at the window too.
Yeah. Tell you what, let's not use that. Let's go straight with. I'm going to leap into the window and stab them with my sword cane.
Okay, so you're
savvy and discreet.
So following Sparrow in, I guess, is what we'll do. We'll see what Sparrow does before we resolve yours. How about Dagger, Ben?
Dagger's at the bottom of the line.
Yeah, I think, or maybe still on the ground waiting to get the all clear.
Unless you have, do you have a range weapon and a range skill? I mean, you could engage from the ground with that.
It's not my forte.
I mean, so it's completely valid to say, I'm just going to wait till those two up there get their shit together and then follow them in, right? You like everything you do does not have to be an action. In fact, I would say you should be just thinking fictionally what you're trying to do, and then that might not even require a roll. That might just be, hey, you climb up no problem, and whatever trouble they're in or if they've solved by then, you can muck in.
Yeah, I think he'll start climbing, seeing that they're hearing the groan of metal and seeing the screws pop and fall to the ground. He's can't leave them for a minute. Start climbing up.
Okay. And Alan, how about Phase?
Oh, Phase is swearing under her breath. At why didn't Sparrow check that this was secure before convincing us to go through the window? But no, I'm just going to wait and see at this point. I suppose I'm looking around the garden back towards the canal to see whether, because presumably this butler has some light. So there might be light spilling from the window now.
Yeah, I think there's, a lantern, a gas lantern or something. Maybe sitting on a bedside locker or something like that. He's not holding it.
Okay.
Okay, let's cut back to Sparrow. So you are primarily trying to just jump in, right? Get off your uncomfortable perch here and just get out of danger, bowling him over as you go in. Oh, you're muted, Jose.
Sorry, I'm muted. The one other thing, and this might just be too crazy to even suggest, is I have a silence potion. I don't know if I can imbibe that while still performing this maneuver, but that seems a little far-fetched that I would be able to do that. So why don't we just go for the tumble in on top of the old man?
Yeah, I mean, what you could say is that when you were just about to pick the lock, you had already taken it. because these old locks, you didn't want it to creak, all that kind of stuff. So you could say you've
Alright.
already taken it.
Okay. If I can say that sounds
yeah.
good.
So like a quick retcon like that is like not a, or sorry, you could say let's have a flashback, and I think it's so straightforward to say it's like a 0 stress flashback because it's entirely reasonable that you could have been doing that.
But wait a second, if I'd done that, then the old man wouldn't have heard us.
Maybe he was opening the window just to take the air.
Well, here's the question, Jose. Do you think the vial takes effect immediately, or does it take some time to get into your system, like a couple of seconds or whatever?
I think I mean, if I were using it well, I don't know exactly the timing of it, what everything happened, but I would assume I would take it before I tried to pry the shutters open, and wait for it to kick in before I would try to pry the shutters.
Yeah, but the balcony gave way like before
before I actually pried the shutters open. Oh, okay, I see.
So we can be fast and loose, right? With the
okay.
Or you could just say, "Hey, I'm really quick at taking this. I slug it and I jump in."
Yeah.
Okay. So mark your silence potion vial as used.
And should we also somewhere have marked climbing gear?
Yes, I have climbing gear here.
Yes.
Sorry, I was looking at the generic list.
Yeah. So one.
Gear, but you've got special climbing gear.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
One. This is one amount is enough for now, unless you need to climb somewhere else later on.
I can't seem to mark things, but
so if you
just double click it.
You'll get a drop down.
Oh.
Okay.
Oh, I see it.
Yeah. Okay. Cool.
Thank you.
So.
I silently fall upon the old man, or try to.
Yeah.
Or fall to my death.
Or fall to your death. Yeah. So this. So you're in a desperate position because the engagement roll was just terrible, right? And you're like swinging on this wrought iron balcony as Whiplash beside you is about to undertake some violent action. So this seems like a desperate action.
Yeah, sounds
I think it's standard effect. Like you're just gonna get in the window. There's no big effect to it. There's no limited effect. You're
I'd like to sit on the old man, but he's in my way.
So one thing you could do is prowl also kind of covers ambush with close violence. So if you did, so it's effectively the same role, except your main objective here would be to silence him permanently.
Silence him, yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yes, I can do that. Yeah.
Okay.
Maybe a blackjack or maybe a throat cutting. How bad are we?
How badass are you? Yeah.
Blackjacks are usually from behind, though, so I would think a throat cutting might be, or a throat stab would be the way.
Or you could just leave that to Whiplash as he follows you in.
Yeah. Since I know that no sound can be made, I just have to overpower the old man.
Yeah. He's a frail old man. That is really all he is. Okay, so I think we're happy with a desperate stand.
Sure.
Well, happy is right, the wrong word. We're agreed maybe on a desperate standard prowl roll. So the other thing we can do here is you can push yourself. You can get help from Whiplash if it makes fictional sense, or you could take a devil's bargain.
I'm willing to assist because I think that sort of it sort of sounds right. The description, sort of, you're swinging. I see that you've fallen. I then jump in with you, and as you're sort of shanking this bloke, you know, I'm also giving him a bit of the pincushion treatment. You know, some of the ultra violence comes out. So I will assist.
Yeah, I can imagine you as she's trying to get the swing because she's like free falling here, right? But you're actually still holding on to the pipe, so you can grab her leg and help her through.
Yeah, a quick shove in. Okay,
Quick
so
shove.
helping costs 1 stress.
I pay that. Yeah.
Yeah. So you'll be rolling 3 dice, Jose.
Well, let's see if it goes better this time. Famous last words, right? Here we go. Okay, that's better.
Much better. Okay. So yeah, what does that look like?
So I imagine that we both crash through into the room. It's a 6, right? So
Yeah, so it's like everything you want.
everything worked.
Yeah, everything worked.
Everything worked, but it's eerily quiet while the whole thing happens because there's no sound. And I land on top of the old man, and Whiplash lands on his feet, like right next to me. And I don't know if the shanking happens there or or maybe she just hauls off and punches the old Dodger across the face really hard to see if she can knock him out.
So yeah, I think you punch him in the nose, and he's out like a light. So I think when Whiplash kind of maybe Whiplash is behind your shoulder and a knife comes out, so it's completely up to you whether you want to do this cold-blooded act of murder or not. What do you think, Paul?
Jose tends to be aiming at not murder, so I will also go with no murder. It clearly goes against my better judgment.
Now you're going to blame me if the old man wakes up.
I will advise my client that should silence him permanently.
Okay, awesome. So back on the ground. Yeah, I think like you were. Yeah, this kerfuffle is completely silent, right? So you don't have any sense of how it's going from here, right? You just can't maybe see in, but maybe you get a thumbs up from Sparrow or Whiplash to give you the all clear, right? At the front door, before you ascend, though, you hear the door open, and Telda's barrage of I don't know, abuse turns into, please, mister, like, give me arms. I'm standard begging, but the door gets slammed in her face pretty sharpish, or at least does it, right?
Mhm.
So here's an opportunity for you to either get in the front door before it closes, or to just use it as something else going on to keep someone's attention on the front door as you climb up normally.
How do you feel about me opening the front door?
So you've 2 options. One is you could get there before the door gets closed.
No, I want to be the person who opens it. I want to get to the front door because I'm about to take on the identity of the new housekeeper.
Okay, so you want to be the person opening the door for Tilda. Am I understanding correct?
Yes.
Okay, so that to me sounds like, obviously we never saw FaZe standing at the bottom of the rope at all, did we? It was just a shadow.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, so
I was going into the servants' entrance at the back.
Yeah. So this sounds to me like if you were the housekeeper, it would have been something that FaZe has been working on for a while now, right?
I was just going to declare find cover identity.
So,
Paperwork, planted stories, and rumors, and a large bunch of keys, as all housekeepers carry.
okay. So this is usually not to get you as someone specific, right? That seems like a
Oh no, not
yeah.
not the housekeeper. The butler's taken ill. I'm the replacement. And I
Yeah, but
just go, I use command to get through the servant's entrance and just bustle through the house.
okay. Sorry,
That's what I'm aiming for.
sorry. I was just thinking that you had said you had been hired yesterday as the housekeeper, and you were okay. So that's
I'm using housekeeper and butler interchangeably
okay.
in gender flexible deskfall.
Okay. So let us the way you're describing it sounds like command.
Yeah.
Force of will, and don't you know who I am? And
Yes. Have you not been told?
Yeah.
The master will be most distressed to find out that nothing has been prepared. I'll inspect the house now. Who's that at the door? Has anyone gone?
So, is this, knocking at the back door in the middle of the night, and having done it to be in position? Is it? I mean, the engagement roll went horribly, but I'm not sure this is quite as desperate as that. It still seems entirely risky.
I'd go with risky.
Yeah.
Is it a flashback? Because it is happening before
that's
the
true.
action.
I could pay stress to have it as a flashback that happens while this is going on.
I mean, you could, but I would say it's relatively simultaneous, right? It's like maybe a minute before, and we didn't see FaZe doing anything else, right? So kind of simultaneous, some nice editing, and so on. If she had been hired as the housekeeper yesterday and was always inside, then that would be a flashback for sure.
Fair enough.
I would generally say for this kind of thing, because it's a small staff, they know what's going on. It's not like the house is so big that you mightn't have heard. So I would usually say limited, but your fine cover identity will bump that up to standard. What's the detail you think is kind of the tilting factor there? What's
I think that one of the keys is very obviously with the Skurlock crest on it. And they're hanging around my neck for easy access. And clearly I've got them a set from the master.
Okay, yeah. Awesome. So yeah, let's make that, I guess it is risky standard command. You want to push, or are you interested in a devil's bargain? Or
I think I'm so the 2 stress to push.
2 stress to push, yeah.
Yeah, which will give me a 3rd dice.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
I think I'll settle the 3 dice. What could go wrong, Jose?
Don't say things like that.
A 6, a 2, and a 1.
There's your 6. Yeah, so I think this is a young maid who is in her nightgown, had been woken up by the ruckus, or bad dreams, maybe. Who knows? does she? What name does she call? I mean, I think maybe she was expecting someone. She uses a name, maybe Miss Bell or something like that.
Fine. Oh, you must be Miss Bell.
Yeah. And I think she is. Obviously, your arrival means the master will be here soon, and that
Yes.
puts her in a flurry. If you want to call on her later, she'll be there. But now she's doing stuff that needs doing for the master's imminent arrival.
Oh, she's doing more than that. She's getting all the staff up and getting them downstairs where I can inspect them.
Of course, ma'am.
I'll deal with the front door.
So, at the front door, I mean, I'm guessing, is Dagger there waiting for the door to be opened, or are you following up the rope?
Yeah, could be. Yeah, sure. He's charming, cocky enough to do something stupid like that.
So, like, I think Phase's disguise or like manner is changed, right? So, do you think like Dagger recognizes it straight away, or is like double take, or how does Dagger react to this surprise? Or, of course, Phase is on the inside.
Momentary surprise, but then, of course, the plan's changed.
But this was the plan all the time.
Of course. Yep. Let's go. Nobody tells me anything.
As you come in, I say, "You're my brother."
Good to know, sis. How's Mom doing?
Okay, so with things returning to something of an even keel, I think we should take another break. Okay, so we're back. I think it's probably worth having a sidebar about action rolls now, given that we've had a flurry of them. I think we had a big variety of them too, right? So some kind of in the moment stuff, some that's very player centered in terms of like here's what I want to do instead of kind of reacting. I think what's the kind of important point for me on actions is that it's very rarely, here I want to make a skirmish roll, and then we have to talk about what that means in the fiction. The way I think it's important to approach it is that all the resolution kind of details come from from like the fiction, right? So we have created a situation, or we've been presented with an obstacle, and all the fictional details suggest certain ways to approach it to you as players, and like you might have certain ideas on how to do that. But when we talk about position and effect, then everything makes sense because we know what the situation is, right? So, so Alan, that command roll, right? Obviously, you went into it framing it as a command roll because you were being very authoritative, but the position and effect of that, made sense based on all the fiction that had already occurred. So we could very easily agree on what that position and effect was because we knew exactly what you were leaning into. There was no, oh, I think it's this, and here's what I'm trying to pull, but it made sense at the time. that we were talking about like a risky effect and also limited, although that find the skies kit raised you up to a standard effect. And probably similarly, although with a different thing with that prowl from Sparrow, right? That the situation was all messed up and we added in a little retcon, but it was still like, I guess the choice for you was like, is murder your aim or is just getting into the house your aim? But like everything else again made kind of perfect sense based on the terrible engagement role, right, that you were in, and how that kind of developed. I think maybe that's one of the, so like when I am developing the world for the scoundrels to hit or to impact, I'm talking about obstacles. I'm not thinking, oh, here's how you solve it. Here's the method you use to solve it. I'm thinking like, here's the fictional positioning, and like you have a lot of tools in your toolkit, right? You can approach it, but like the general flavor, the position effect should almost seem natural at the table. Like, of course, it's going to be desperate because that's the way it was set up. And then everything else we can maybe push on the details a little bit to get to a different place, but the kind of obstacles are what's really important here for me as a GM in Blades, and like how you solve it is kind of your deal. Okay, does that make sense? Or
yeah, I mean it does, but I'm still curious because I'm trying to think, how do I? It seems almost instinctive when you said that sounds like it's still risky, and I'm thinking, okay, and it is the thing I really struggle with when I think about running this game is how risky is risky. When does desperate become just risky? And that whole position and then effect, I just get, oh.
So
is it just about?
So it's risk and reward, right? So risk and reward are probably much more natural terms to use than position and effect. So how much risk are you taking? If you fluff your lines, what's really gonna go bad, right?
That's
and reward is like how big is the payoff here?
That's really helpful actually, because it is that position and effect. It doesn't kind of mean anything to me. Intuitively, it doesn't work as language. Whereas risk and reward, suddenly that becomes operable. That's really helpful.
Yeah. So and that is just like fictional positioning. If we use that PBTA term, right? Like what's going on here? What could go wrong? How badly can things go wrong? And then like, what is that payoff going to be? Okay. Okay. Any other questions before we move on? Any other niggles?
Yeah, just so Sparrow took it was a desperate action, the opener move, wasn't it?
Yeah.
So that's an XP there.
Yeah.
Sparrow.
So yeah, for a one shot, I'm just gonna like elide all the XP, right? But the other thing is, typically when I'm running, I tell people to mark that XP when they make it, because you're not gonna remember, at the end of the session how many desperate rolls you made and what they were in. So yeah, I would always say, tell people to mark that XP as soon as you make it. So that's a good point, and that is like one thing that we haven't quite seen yet is you have an option of trading position for effect, right? So So if you have risky standard, you can say, oh, in order to get a bigger effect, I'm gonna go into a desperate position. So I'm gonna like go all in basically, and like obviously that ups the stakes for both in the risk and reward sense, but also you get that sweet XP for pushing yourself into a desperate action. Typically, though, that is some way to deal with limited effect. If you end up in a situation where you're getting limited or even no effect, you can like push your risk to desperate in order to get some kind of better return. So that's something that's again kind of worth keeping in mind, and sometimes that's something for you as a GM to suggest, right? If someone goes, "Oh, limited effect, I don't like that," if they don't have a fine item to boost them in some way, then you can say, "Hey, you could push yourself to get a desperate position in order to get yourself a standard effect." And that's just like a dial that you probably not Blades 101, but something to keep in mind. Okay.
The engagement roll is just for this first initial. It's not for the whole score, or will the whole score be desperate? Or
No, so typically I would have like the first maybe round of, or the initial stage of action rolls be desperate after a terrible engagement roll, and then kind of return to the baseline of risky for the rest. And the same for like if you'd rolled a 6 on engagement, it would have been like controlled start. Everything would have been breezy again in that initial phase. But I think that the kind of rule of thumb would be, desperate initially and then move to risky or whatever it is. But also like let the fiction decide. So like if things keep ramping up, you're gonna keep ramping up, and that could be like, if you get a shit action result, and then just things escalate, the fan breaks down with everything being thrown at it. So yeah, the rule of thumb is like maybe desperate actions for the first round or the initial kind of scene, and then return to normal. Typically, sometimes in practice, when things start off desperate, they never get better. But but then again, that's your XP gravy train, right? Okay. So what I wanted to do kind of for this initial one is, for this kind of next phase, is based on phases kind of desire to round up all of the staff and kind of control the situation. I think that's like where the danger could be, that someone sees what happens to the butler, or someone is a bit suspicious, right? So I put a clock in the dice room, which I've labeled staff present and accounted for. I guess towing the line, we could call it as well. It's a 6-segment clock. So this is kind of you controlling the staff and making sure they're not nosing in your business as you do the burglary, right? So this is something we can multitask for. So like you can try to do it all in one go together, or you can send someone up to the third room floor to do the burglary as other people control the staff. That's completely up to you. Let's start with Whiplash, maybe. If our slide is the best person to lead this kind of social engagement with.
I think the first, for an XP move, I will heat my sword cane, the top of my sword cane, in the gas lamp, and then I will brand the the butler, the unconscious butler, with the mark of my cult. So yeah, on his forearm, he will now have the twin serpent mark that is on the top of my sword cane. And then basically I will strip him and using a disguise kit, I will try and impersonate the butler.
Okay, so not just a generic butler, this particular person, right?
Yeah,
Okay.
it'll be this person. I'm going to strip him of his clothes.
Yeah.
So I don't really need any sort of extra equipment for false kit. So yeah, I will just
you might need I don't know, a prosthetic nose or prosthetic eyebrows for that. Old crusty butler look, right?
And then I will put my my oilskin sort of cloak around me. I mean, it's quite wet anyway. You know, smash a few windows because we've still got the silence potion going to add to the sort of flavour of why I'm wearing the oilskin. Yeah, and then I will turn to Sparrow and say, you know, I've got the butler's role. I'll go and deal with some of the staff. Do you want to head upstairs, Sparrow?
Yeah, you keep everybody out of my way.
I'll hold him here and below.
I'll get the artifact.
Excellent.
Okay. So yeah, I mean that sounds like a sway roll. You are charming them with your deception, right? Or maybe charm is the wrong word for for old culture, but
can I possibly act before that happens? Because I quite like to send Dagger up to get the butler.
Okay.
Thinking that he'd either have to knife the butler or subdue him some way, because we all know the butler's getting past it. And so I quite, because I want Dagger upstairs in a position where he can back Sparrow.
Okay.
That's
well,
my thinking.
Like if you're sending Dagger upstairs, that doesn't require an action, and it's not. Yeah. So, and I think you probably know that those two, having gone into that room, have taken care of the butler already, right? So I don't think that's a risk you need to address.
It's an excuse to get Dagger upstairs.
Yeah. You can do that for sure. Okay, so Paul, you got a sway roll from Whiplash. I think with your cloak and dagger, you're getting a +1 roll die to your roll to confuse or deflect suspicion. And with your fine disguise kit, that is bumping you up, I think, to great effect. So yeah, I mean, there's still a risk, right? These people live with the butler. You're going to have to, based on your observation and maybe Sparrow's observation, you're going to have to make an acting stretch to pull it off.
Yeah, I'm going to bluff him that some crows have flown through the window, you know, and then they attacked me.
Okay.
So that, you know, that's why my face is a little bit bloody. You know, and I'm you know, it was raining. I put the oil skin on, and I'll try and play off. I'm going to try and play off Faye's, you know, with that explanation there as her as the housekeeper. So we're backing each other up, building this layered story between the two of us.
Okay, perfect. Yeah. So yeah, what like give me the scene. You know, the butler comes out to the landing, and like staff are running. You know, the handful of staff there are running here and there. Like, what do you say to them? What's your
bloody crows? Bloody crows have flown in. Everybody downstairs. The master's coming. We need a brief. Start the ovens. The master's coming.
Perfect. So that's 3 dice to start with. Do you think the interplay with phase means there might be some helping, or
I'm definitely hoping phase will add to the story of getting all the staff together.
Yes, absolutely. When the bumbling butler begins to make his way downstairs, there's phase at the bottom of it. I've never seen a house like it. This is no way to run a home. This is not. The master will be disgusted. You, sir, have lax standards.
It'll be fine. The staff will get there. Don't worry about it.
And so almost trying to draw their attention to the argument between their betters, rather than focusing on, does that look exactly like the man who went to bed earlier?
So with this, right, there's a couple of things you can do with teamwork, and sometimes it's kind of obvious what's happening just based on the fiction. Sometimes it's really just down to preference. So the simplest one is to help someone. So you like mark a stress to give them an extra die. The other thing you could do is to kind of set them up. So you can like make your roll to give them a greater effect. And then the last option here would be to take a group action. So you like all do the same action, and you like take the best result from everyone's roll.
No, well, there's no way I'm getting into sway, and you are not going near command. So I'm just going to spend a stress.
Okay. So yeah, that's like normal, right? Sometimes like mechanically you just choose one as being better for you. And of course, before we kind of take that road, you could say, oh, well, Dagger, like as he's going up the stairs, could also get involved, and you could do like a command group action between the two of you.
Oh, you see, I'm quite happy because I've got a special ability called Foresight. 2 times per score, you can assist a teammate without paying stress. Because actually, a cost-free flashback to Whiplash and Phase, doing this,
rehearsal,
practicing it.
So, is our role to fill this clock?
Yes.
Okay. So, just to, speaking mechanically, I roll all those dice. I haven't got a fine thing to up the level. If I rolled a 5, it would just fill one chunk, wouldn't it, of that 6?
No. So normally, with this kind of thing, you're filling multiple. So like on a lesser effect, you're filling multiple ticks. So again, it kind of depends. So I think if we look at the rules. Yeah, so typically, right, you're taking 1, 2, or 3 depending on the kind of extent of your success, right? And then greater effect or lesser effect will bump that up or down. So we said greater effect, right, with your disguise kit.
So that would kick it. That would move that along. I'm just thinking, is there any? Would it be worth me moving into the desperate category to get a higher effect?
There's nothing higher than greater effect. So
fine, we will sit at greater effect then.
You're maxed out.
We're maxed out.
Yeah.
So let's build this dice pool and see where we go.
Yeah. So you are. Sorry, you have 2 dice for sway, one for your cloak and dagger, and 1 for your help. So that is 4 dice.
Let's see what we get. A 6 would be nice. And we winner, chicken dinner. We've got the 6.
6.
6 of greater effect.
Yeah, that is pretty good. So yeah, why don't you? So usually, right? You're at great effects. So you're doing 3 ticks, right? And because you get a 6, your action is having no downside. So like your 4 to 5 mixed result is doing nothing. So 3 is halfway there. Why don't you describe what that looks like? How maybe after you're done, FaZe can add a couple of details in.
I think this is, all the staff are present. I'm now dishing out household tasks. And we've corralled them into pretty much the kitchen and the sort of main dining room area, and whatever stores run off the kitchen. So we've isolated them, or as best we can, and basically it's just task after relentless task. These guys aren't going to have much of an uptime to sort of like, what was that noise? That sort of thing.
Yeah, so with a Chris, we would probably give a bump of a couple of ticks, right? Or we would give some extra impact, something kind of an outside context benefit for that.
Just to be clear, they're not all corralled yet, are they? Because we've got to fill that clock before they're all corralled.
Yeah,
so, that's why I said as the best that I could.
Fine.
Yeah, so you remember you didn't get an exact head count, right? From Janice, you just said like about a handful, and between that and Sparrow's surveillance, you think you have most of them. Maybe there's 1 or 2, or maybe the kind of towing the line is like one of them in the kitchen or the dining area might be a bit suspicious, right? For some reason,
Well, I'm banking on, now that I've said my brother will go upstairs and make sure everybody's. Is there anybody missing? And that's Drav's excuse to go upstairs.
Yeah.
And I rely on him to effectively send more people down were he to bump into them.
Yeah. So.
And they were to survive.
Yeah. So Dagger, what you're heading upstairs. What is your general approach here? Are you looking for any holdouts in the staff? Are you backing up Sparrow, or what's your plan here?
Well, considering feels like volume is no longer something we need to be too concerned about. He'll just be walking down the hall, clapping his hands. Come on down. Master's on his way. Housekeeper needs to see you. And hopefully just keep moving. And if anyone comes out, he's already past them.
Okay, yeah. So the Chekhov's thug, we'll call him, is probably one of the staff members you haven't seen. So yeah, I think you have, I think maybe like a young man, maybe 17 or 18, comes out in a kind of maybe having thrown on some clothes. Maybe that's why he's not out. And he looks bleary-eyed at you and kind of goes like, "Who the hell are you?"
I'm the new housekeeper's brother, helping out for the night.
New housekeeper?
Head on downstairs. You'll meet her. She's looking forward to meeting you.
And yeah, I think like maybe a little bit too confused with lack of sleep or being woken up in the middle of deep sleep to really argue. And I think, Dagger's manner just gets him to towing the line straight away. I will take a box for that, just in general. But you have, I think like a moment later, you're walking past another door, and like the shot we see of the doorway that this guy is in, we kind of see him do that, neck crunch thing, right? He says, "New housekeeper, well, this I've got to see." And yeah, I think you've got someone who thinks they should know everything that's going on in the house and isn't taking any of this bull.
Well, don't look too hard. She's my sister. You This going to be a problem for you?
It's going to be a problem.
Unfortunate. And I'll just walk into the room with the intent of closing the door behind us.
Okay. Do you think this should be like we hear muffled noises from it, or do we want to get a close-in shot of the fight? Or both?
Yeah, I think
we
it
can
would
do
be
both, right?
He's going to try and be subtle for anyone not in the room.
Okay, good. So, like, what's your go-to for this kind of challenge?
It seems like a skirmish with a blade.
Okay. What kind of a blade you drawing out?
For this, probably just a simple, like a dagger.
Okay. So like when Dagger like pulls this, is there like talking first, or is it like cut straight to business?
Oh, he's just going to get straight to it.
Okay.
This guy said he'd be a problem.
He did. So I think, yeah, I mean, this seems like a pretty straightforward fight. I think he is using weapons that come to hand. So I think like one of those bed warmers. There's like a side table and like this long, pole with a brass bowl at the end of it for bed warming. He just picks that up, just grabs it and swings it at your head, right? So yeah, I mean, I think this guy's tough. We built him up a little bit. Sometimes with a tough opponent, I would like create a clock, right, and we would treat it like a longer running thing. But for now, I think we can just treat it like a normal, straight up action roll. So yeah, I mean, he's tough and he's scary, but so are you. That's what a cutter does. So call it risky standard to start with, unless you want to push.
Yeah, sure. Why not? I'll give it a push.
Okay, so you can push for a die or push for effect. So you could, like, essentially go for the kill by pushing to great effect by spending 2 stress.
Yeah, I'll go for effect.
Okay, so that would be like a end this fight in one go kind of move, right? Okay, so you happy rolling just those 2 dice?
I think so.
And take your chances.
I am just curious whether this is a fine hand weapon you're using, because that would help, wouldn't it?
Yeah, I mean, I asked, but I think unless you want, you can retcon it, right? You can say, oh, on second, or you can just say on second thoughts, I won't pick my normal blade. I will pull out my fine hand weapon, right? Or my scary weapon, or whatever.
My perfectly balanced dagger, I think.
Yeah. Okay, cool. So in that case, you could push for an extra die instead of for great effect.
Sure.
Because I think
Yep.
and maybe some of it is, he's ready for a fight, and then you pull out that blade, and that gives him a little bit of pause psychologically. Maybe the blade is famous or whatever. What do you think?
Yeah, sounds good. Just the ease and confidence with which he wields it would probably unsettle someone. All right. Oof. 2 is my highest.
Wow.
I drop the blade and trip on it. Or I take a bed warmer to the face.
Yeah, I think maybe it's, he is just like gonna give you a good punching, and then you pull out the dagger, and he takes a step back, and then he grabs the bed warmer, right? And yeah, he clocks you in the head, just swings out of nowhere, hits like a sledgehammer. So I will call this level 2 harm. And it's, fractured skull or something like that. So, you can say a couple of things now. You can say, oh well, obviously I'm wearing my kind of skull, iron skull cap underneath my hat, right? Or you can say, no, I'm gonna dodge that. He ain't hitting me with some bed warmer.
I think I'm gonna have to dodge that. That's way too embarrassing.
Yeah. So declaring armor would reduce that to level 1 harm, right? But if you resist it, you're gonna, I think, depending on how you describe it and how we feel about it, we might say, oh, he just misses you, or it would reduce the harm as well. So that's, again, something that we can kind of talk about. I guess if you're resisting it, you kind of tell me how are you not having your skull half caved in by this bed warmer?
He's just going to attempt to duck under it and avoid.
Okay. So that sounds like a prowess, unless you think it's you see it coming and you're kind of boxing clever.
I think prowess works.
Okay, cool. So the way this works is you've got 2 in prowess. So you're going to roll 2 dice, and basically you take 6 stress minus your highest die result. So rolling high is good as ever.
All right. A 5.
Okay, so it's 1 stress, and yeah, I think if you're dodging, I think it just swings slightly off, or you just step back or step under or whatever. What does it look like when you dodge that terrible +3 bed warmer?
Yeah, he'll kind of duck and back away and just go, really?
Yep, really. And I think maybe it, having missed you now, it destroys a lamp on the other side of the room, and he just kind of brings it around, and I think he's keeping it moving, right? That's how you use a 2-handed weapon. He's going to keep it moving. And you said you closed the door, right?
Yep.
Behind you? Okay. Which, may not have been the best idea now.
Maybe not.
Yeah. Okay, let's cut back to Sparrow, who is, avoiding all this kerfuffle and going straight to the prize, right?
Yeah. So she's climbed the stairs to the 3rd floor. And She's climbed the stairs to the 3rd floor, and as she arrives on the landing of the 3rd floor, as she is in, I mean, her mode is prowling. I mean, she's attempting to be stealthy as she moves up because she doesn't know if there's any more servants or house
Yeah.
staff around here.
I'm gonna just say there are no more servants. I think they're all kind of moving downstairs or in the middle of a fight. Well, a couple of levels down. So
So I noticed the hallway then is clear of people.
yeah, and I think maybe the kind of odd thing here is that there's this like normally on this kind of multiple level house, you might expect the layout to be the same on multiple levels, but this is not. And there's this long corridor, like with no doors either side, leading down to this mysterious 3rd floor room. And as you walk down it, like those gas lamps along the side of the corridor light up.
Okay. And there's a door at the end of the corridor.
There's a door at the end.
So she will approach the door at the end of the corridor.
So does Sparrow just like shrug and ignore the mysterious lights turning on, or is like, oh, the price of doing business in Skurlock Manor?
I think so can she tell us if there's some mechanism that's causing it to happen, or if it's supernatural in origin? Like, are there plates that she can see that are activating the lamps, or is there? Well, I guess that's the question. Can she notice any mechanical way that this could be happening, based on the current technology in this world?
I think it's cooler if it's mechanical.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, there seems to be some kind of pressure plate, just like maybe just under the carpeting, right, or something like that, where you walk along it and it just lights up.
So I think
obviously someone is way too important to use light switches or something. Yeah.
Right. But now that she sees that there's pressure plates, she's on the lookout for pressure plates that might not have such innocuous effects as turning the lights on.
There's going to be a classic Grimtooth trap at the end of this corridor. Do you think we go straight to Tinker? I mean, like, I think now that we've mentioned Grimtooth traps, there has to be one, right?
Now there has to be one, yes.
Yeah. So I think it's a matter of disarming it or not triggering it, right?
Not triggering it somehow, figuring out the pattern that has to be walked or something, or disarming it. Yeah, sure. That sounds like a trap move.
Okay.
So Tinker, then I have 2 in Tinker, and yeah, go ahead.
I would say for any regular thief, this would be very tough, but because you have Infiltrator, you are not affected by quality or tier when you bypass security measures.
Okay.
So you're not getting bumped down in terms of position or effect because
Okay. Do you tell us position and effect first, and then I roll?
Yes, definitely. So I would say, because you're forewarned, you know what kind of a device this is likely to be. You don't know what the effect would be, but you kind of know what the pressure plates might mean. So I think this is risky, and I'll say standard because of your Infiltrator, because you're not getting limited effect. as
Okay.
you might usually get.
Do you want some help?
Sure.
Flashback to
Foresight.
Faze and Sparrow hunched over the blueprints I just declared. And I will use the second instance of foresight. Because having obtained these blueprints from City Hall or a friendly trap installer, you know where the trap mechanism is. It's why you weren't surprised earlier.
I knew there was a reason.
Perfect. So of course, in an ongoing campaign, we would be very interested in August, the master architect who got you these plans, or maybe the blue coat archivist. Who knows? That would be something we dig into. So that's an extra die for you, Jose.
Okay, and considering my stress level, I might as well push as well. I don't want to mess this up. So I'll take a couple more stress.
Particularly not as the backup that Dagger was supposed to provide is proving difficult to get on site.
Yeah, I think I'm not going to be alone for much longer. Okay, where did I put the dice roller? Okay. Let's see what happens. What's a 6? I'm glad I had 4.
Okay. So yeah, why don't you maybe not tell me how you disarm it, but actually, you can do that as well. But like, I want to know what this would have done to you if you hadn't disarmed it.
Let's say, this is a very steampunky environment, right? So I'm thinking about electrical field. Some kind of very intense electrical discharge would have happened between across the hallway and would have basically fried me. But I have managed to sidestep the plates or walked across them in the correct order. How's
Yeah.
that? Yeah.
Can I maybe offer a slight tweak to that?
Oh yeah, go for it.
Based on your idea, maybe we can do a callback to those ghost barriers that were identified at the very start. Maybe
Oh right.
maybe this trap would have taken your spirit out of your body,
Yeah.
and trapped
Some
it
kind of
for
ectoplasmic trauma.
yeah. Trapped it for Lord Scarlock's private collection. Okay, awesome. Back downstairs, I think, for all but one of the staff has accumulated in the dining area. I think we give Faze a chance to stamp her authority over them for good.
Are we aware that somebody's missing?
Well, I'm going to set you up with a roll. I'm going to use study to study the staff who is clearly missing from a roll down here. Looking at who's doing what assigned tasks, speaking to like the cook. Can I deduce who is missing with looking at what's going on and what's not being done?
I would almost say that that the tough guy that you identified during the surveillance is missing, right, for free. So I think I'd give you that without a roll.
Well, then based on that, I think Faze is simply going to say to I can't remember if we got a name, sir. Find your remaining member of staff.
Yes, of course. I'll go and get them now. Back soon.
given Dagger might need a bit of backup, so he can provide backup.
Okay. So Alan, why don't you make a roll to control what all staff except the one who's going to end up shivved in a moment.
Okay. So this is command. I think again.
Yeah. What are you saying to them to snap them back into line, or is that really you treating the butler with such command that the rest of them toe the line?
I think it's just ensuring that they understand the pecking order.
Yeah.
If she can do that to him, what could she do to us? Says one kitchen maid to another.
Okay. So yeah, I think the setup there is still pretty good. So I think this is great effect. But it's still a bit risky. I think there's still the chance now with the butler gone that they turn on you, or maybe turn on you is a bit too strong a word. So
I will spend a couple of stress to push to give myself a third dice.
okay.
And I'll take a chance on that.
Okay. So
that's a 5.
Okay. So I think that completes the clock. So we're up to 6 segments. On a 4 to 5, though, I think you're kind of aware that this is a temporary hold.
Yeah.
That
people are beginning to think about.
Yeah. They'll wake up in 20 minutes or 30 minutes, and then it'll be, wait a minute. Something smells off here.
Yeah.
So,
yeah. How did you get here? We didn't hear a carriage arrive. Yeah. I think that's fine.
Or maybe that they've been given jobs and they'll be out of your immediate vicinity, and they'll be maybe whispering among themselves and over time. Yeah. So there's a
chitter chatter.
Yeah. So what I would do. I know we're running low on time. What I would do in this stage normally is I would create another clock for the penny dropping with them, and then we would be filling that with devil's bargains and filling that with bad results or whatever. Okay, and that's a good kind of that's not quite a tug of war clock, but that's like a how with that final result being a 4-5 on controlling them, how long does that control last is something that's good to keep track of with a clock. Okay, so I think maybe what I want to do now, given that we are running low on time, is wrap things up with a quick, not an action roll, but just give us a quick, how do you finish this? And then how do we escape? So maybe let's start with Dagger. Have you finish off this guy, and then let's move around the table.
So I think what Dagger would do is, if he manages to avoid another swing of the bed warmer, I think he'd try and wrestle the guy to the ground, and considering who this is, maybe he's going to rethink his initial instinct and instead use some manacles and chain to bind his arms in such a way that the chain is across his mouth. So
okay,
he's both trapped and mostly silenced.
Okay, awesome. So I'm not going to look for an action roll. I'm just going to have you describe how that is successful, and maybe he gets in a few digs, but you'll be. How does Dagger manage it in the end?
So he, after dodging the swing and being told really, he'll just he'll throw his dagger blunt end, base first at the guy's forehead to just hopefully stun him enough that I just did that, and then just swoop in, push him down to the bed, get the manacles, get his hands up, and shackle him to the bed with the chain through his teeth, and then I'll take the bed warmer and just stick it up his shirt. Wouldn't have you getting cold.
Wow, would not
And then-
like to get on Dagger's bad side. Okay, awesome. How about Sparrow? What I guess why don't you kind of describe what the artifact is that you've been sent to retrieve, and how big her eyes get as she thinks about the payoff?
Yeah, and I think after she picks the lock to the door, and enters, what she's found up there is a very large space, and some of it has a lot of like what appear to be torture implements and tables, and she can understand why there's been groans and screams coming out of this space over the past few months, and I think the artifact is actually a very ornate dagger that's on a stand on the far end. And it has some kind of supernatural properties. So she approaches it very carefully, and she has some kind of a black cloth or something and black gloves that she puts on so that she's not coming into contact with the artifact as she wraps it up and stuffs it under her cloak and makes her way downstairs.
Great. Whiplash, I think, maybe I want to see your reaction, like maybe when you check in with Dagger and check in with Sparrow, like what do you see, and like what kind of comment do you pass that you'll hold against them in a court of law?
I think definitely with Dagger, it's like just sort of shaking my head, saying, "Well, at least you didn't kill him. That is something." And I think with Sparrow, I think it's clearly got to be, let me see the shiny thing. Show me the shiny thing. Do we have the shiny thing? And then
it up and shows a quick glimpse, but don't touch it.
And then I think sort of back downstairs to assist our resident spider with extricating ourselves from, I'm sure FaZe can come up with some reason why the butler and the house maid needs to leave the property toot sweet.
Well, I mean, I'd like to go for as Dagger and Sparrow and Whiplash are coming down the staircase towards the ground floor before they come down to the kitchen. I'm coming up out of the kitchen, and we just leave through the front door.
With the Mission Impossible music going on.
And is there a calling card that seems like a little bit over the top for this savvy crew?
I did brand the butler.
Yes, that is true.
Brand the butler, and I think that maybe the crew doesn't have a calling card, but what we would discover in the campaign is that Whiplash does.
Yeah.
Why are all these people talking about the two-headed serpent thing?
The cult, the serpent.
Yeah. Okay. So I guess that is a wrap for the job. So obviously at this stage, like in a normal game, we would do a lot of things which are sometimes very mechanical. So like we do the payoff and XP which is probably just purely bookkeeping. Sometimes for the payoff, it's worth having a scene with the person who hired you or the fence or something like that. Again, just to explore like how much that payoff is, but also like what your relationship in this criminal ecosystem is. So that's something I would suggest spending some time on. And then at the kind of the end of that cycle is downtime. And depending on how that time kind of go back to what we were talking about at the start in terms of how much you fit in a session, I think downtime when it's done purely mechanically is quite unsatisfying. And I think it's a great time to like see the characters in their normal day-to-day life, right? So like who do they hang out with? Like what's the feel of where they indulge their vice? Like what do they look like when they're doing long-term projects or whatever it is they have on their plate. And so I would like, generally speaking, if I was playing this through, if we were like 5 minutes from time, I would say, hey, let's just start next session with downtime and like just start like that and get some serious RP in for that and like see what people are like back at the lair. Like, is there discussions about what we're going to do with our money, with our payoff? Who do you like go back to your friend who you talk to in information gathering and hang out with them? What's the kind of get a different feel for the characters than we do like in the action. So I think that and the other thing that does is we've got a the blueprints like daggers, special dagger, like all this stuff. Now we have more stories. So like the next score, you will have thoughts like, hey, we've got to do this. We got to follow up on this. We noticed all that stuff in Skurlock Manor. And so, every time you have a session, you're going to be like generating new leads, or leads is probably the wrong term, but new ideas for what you can do next, right? And so in a campaign, generally speaking, after a couple of jobs, the group will become kind of self-sufficient when it comes to identifying new jobs. And then that's just like a great way of pulling in all those factions, right? So you're going to step on toes. People are going to come after you. You're going to want to go after people because you just don't like them, right? And then also those like down arrow contacts will come into it.
When you ran it campaign style, Donna, as per the book, did they have multiple? Sorry, did players have multiple characters, as it's sort of described in the book, and you should flip between them, or do people tend to concentrate just on one character?
I think it's a player style thing. So say in the cult campaign, one player had like 2 PCs that were always going back and forth. And some of that was like depending on the mission, but some of that was like there was a couple of visits to Iron Hook to reduce heat. And so like, oh, you send this character to Iron Hook and you play the other character, and then they come out having done their time and you play them again. We never did the kind of Iron Hook side piece. We always like kept that off screen. But yeah, I think like we saw that happen a couple of times. So yeah, I think it's a player preference. Like you might, I'd say in Scum and Villainy, we've done like a full crew of like the 7 playbooks, and then you can like pick whoever you want, depending on what the mission is or depending on how you feel that day. So that is kind of I think like a group / player choice of how you want to deal with it. And certainly like if you end up with someone with a lot of if someone ends up really chewed up after a mission in terms of maybe not stress, but in terms of wounds, you might say, well, let's send them to the hospital for a couple of cycles, get them back on their feet, and then play another character. And in terms of characters, I think what we saw that one of those was like a contact of another character, and we played them as a PC then, or just like a person in the gang, in like a cadre or a cohort in the gang who like led the group, then they became a PC. So I don't think we ever saw like a PC just appear out of nowhere, you know. So
Cool.
yeah, I think it depends. Like, you kind of, I think it's probably like when you change playbook in Apocalypse World. You know, the description is like, oh, you know what to keep, and that always provokes a lot of discussion. But yeah, you know what to do when it happens, kind of thing.
Excellent, thanks.
What else is worth talking about?
One thing that I think you've confirmed for me tonight is that there needn't be that many actions in a job. That they can have quite broad and sweeping effects, which I think is something that I've seen it, but it's confirmed to me tonight that you don't have to have, you know, every challenge is not necessarily an action roll. You know, so Dagger doesn't have to sneak upstairs. Sparrow doesn't have to sneak upstairs. Dagger doesn't have to notice the guy that he's going to encounter. Whereas if I was playing a PBTA game, I might well have more of those roles, I think.
So I think like one thing is definitely true. Like when you have an obstacle, your default is that you're going to get rid of it in one roll, right? If you get a success, you're going to be like overcoming that obstacle in one roll. If it's a big one, you make a clock, or you know, if it doesn't work out well, you're probably going to have to go back for seconds, right? But also, like, what's really at risk when, say in this situation, right? We had kind of established that most of the staff in the house are being drawn downstairs. So like, who are you really sneaking past?
Yeah.
Is it really worth having a roll to see if you can find the guy hiding under the bed, right? Like, is that really a challenge for scoundrels, right? Maybe if it's the person you're looking for in the house, you search for them. But if it's just like an unnamed, young servant, then do we care, right?
Yeah.
So in that sense, I would say I would do that in PBTA as well. Like, if it's not, if it's not worth, if it's not a real challenge, you know, if there's very little risk and very little reward, you know, why zoom in to make it important? It's just like a passing event.
Yeah.
But you know, again, that could be, you can make a different decision, you know, in the heat of the moment, or depending on, you know, if the cutter player wants to kind of clear those rooms and do their door kicking thing, then, you know, lean into their specialty, right? So yeah, I mean, I think in this, the core is like the player characters are competent at their jobs, right? And so when there's like a good challenge or something that they have to juggle with, then I'm going to roll. It's a real obstacle. But if it's just, you know, stuff that we breeze past in a movie or whatever, then, you know, we just breeze past it without an action roll. So that's like probably a GMing style thing as well. So I wouldn't say it's hard and fast, but really the rule of thumb here is like, is it an obstacle worthy of our scoundrels, you know, or is it just a detail?
Well, I just need to screw my courage to the sticking place and kind of just do the bloody thing. But yeah, I do find it intimidating, because I suppose the thing that I struggle with a bit is that, do I have sufficient mastery of the system to be able to say to somebody, do you want to push? Or it's those variations that the players might not spot, that a good GM, as you have done tonight, you've kind of offered us stuff, and that's the thing that I'm ending up thinking, don't know.
Yeah, I mean, like the one thing that we kind of skirted around a couple of times was resistance rolls. We didn't see any. We saw like one resistance roll, right? And that's definitely something I would say as a GM, you initially at least, you want to be pushing to your players who are maybe not fluent in Forge in the Dark. But I know after a while, like, players don't need much prompting to say, hey, no, I'm not taking that. But that means you can also push really hard, because the scoundrels have all the tools, like teamwork, resistance rolls, flashbacks, normal pushing, normal stuff like that, to overcome just about anything you throw at them. So, this is not something I would suggest doing as like a normal tactic, but I know on one job, with that cult, they rolled terribly on their engagement roll, and the first thing I hit them with was like a trap, and also like someone just shoots one of them in the head and kills them. And the player goes, no, that's not happening. Whereas you would never do that kind of thing. That would be a dick move in most other systems, right? To say, oh, he's going to kill you. But you just say, no, I'm not taking that. I'm going to dodge that bullet or whatever, because I'm a kick-ass scoundrel and I'm going to serve him his pistol back at him, right? Or whatever it is. So like you can push really hard, because the characters have an awful lot in their magazine, in their toolbox, in their stress track to put up with anything.
I think that's what's hard. I mean, as someone who doesn't know the game well, and just watching myself through this evening, I think there's so many options, and I know that I'm not aware of them all. And when I'm watching the other players play, if they have more experience, like these, you all folks have more experience than me, there were lots of things that you did that I didn't understand. And so I just keep my mouth shut. But I think when those pile up too much, I feel like I don't know what's going on, and it feels disengaging. And I don't know what the response, the fix to that is, but I just wanted to put it on the table in terms of socializing someone into the game, maybe, or bringing someone into the game. It was really helpful when other folks would chime in with suggestions. For me, like when I was actually doing something, but when I was listening, it does get a little alienating sometimes when I don't understand a lot of the mechanics, and I don't want to interrupt someone in their move and say, what are you doing? I don't understand what you're doing.
Well, you see, but I think you should.
Okay, should I?
Because I've been there.
Mm-hmm.
And you saying that has reminded me that I have made progress in my learning of thinking about what does my special ability do? Which bit of equipment could I declare now,
right,
to just push me across the line or get me closer to the line? And I think you should. You see, Jose, I think that, and I think the gauntlet is designed for that.
Yeah.
Really
it
do.
might help to have had, even at the beginning, like an invitation to do that. Like if you don't know what the hell's going on,
fair point.
Feel free to pause and ask or something like that. That would have been helpful for me, if I'm in that role of the newbie. Yeah.
So we now kind of need to dare ourselves.
Yeah, I'm expecting to see 3 new listings of Blades in the Dark on the calendar.
Do you know what I think? I think this would be a really good idea, Donna, as an addition to the Gauntlet calendar. The idea of running a session as a kind of with the intent of teaching some of the system or offering some insights into the system. It's a kind of narrow focus game facilitator camp, isn't it?
Yeah.
And you know what? If we did this more formally, what should happen next week is that, say, Paul should run a one shot, perhaps using the same characters,
the same crew.
Yeah,
absolutely.
And each of us would commit to, running something, because I think that's the next logical step for me, and the fact that it would be, it's not like I'm putting a series up on the calendar and getting a load of Blades experts turn up and sit there in front of me while I go, that it's like the GFCs, isn't it? We're all here together. We're all learning together, and it's a safe place to do it. I think that's the next thing to do, I'm not volunteering, but I think it is the next thing to do.
I mean, the alphabet would suggest you're first.
On the basis of R for Reese.
First name. I can only see your first name.
But I mean, I'm not suggesting that, because I know my calendar can't do it this month. But I think in terms of feedback for the concept, I think it's worth thinking about that.
Yeah, show, do, enable.
Ooh, that sounds a bit. That's you had the management consultants in.
Well, yeah, either people can volunteer, or you just go in who is the most experienced out of the 3 students or 4 students, then picks up the reign. So the least confident person probably goes last, or wherever they feel confident to go. And we're just spreading around the knowledge, growing every session. So people can, then everybody should exit at a reasonably high level. So it's going the opposite of a game facilitators camp. We're concentrating on just one game, try and raise knowledge, rather than different games to achieve a different aim. This is learn to play Blades in the Dark, or learn to run game Blades in the Dark, or learn to run Apocalypse World. I don't sort of get it, so I'd probably sign up for that one. If somebody doesn't get against Dark Conspiracy, there you go. And plus it'll then be different players that wouldn't normally, clearly you are aiming at people lower down who haven't played those games before. So you'd get different people increasing the base use of the game, blah, 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 blah. It would grow.
Well, there's my wish. Donna, can you feed that back to Lowell, just so he can begin to, think about institutionalizing it?
Yeah, I mean, I'm afraid the crash course was wholly my crazy idea based on.
I think it's a clever idea, and I think there's a logical way to move it.
It's giving me more enthusiasm for trying a Blades game, not running one, but actually being in one. that's what my little baby step. But yeah, even if you didn't do the GFC kind of model that had multiple sessions, even if you just did these little one shot crash courses, that could be really great too. Because this was great for me.
Yeah. So thank you, Donna.
Thank you very much.
Okay. So I will stop the recording.